call to order the December 18th, 2012 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. Welcome all of those who are here with us in Carnegie Town Hall and those of you watching us on CityLink or on SiouxFalls.org. We welcome you. I am going to begin today's meeting with a report from the Public Services Committee, most recent meeting on December 11th. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Public Services Committee, December 11th. Agenda started with and ended with Project Trim, an update of the project by Don Kearney and Dwayne Stahl, also Kelby Maharis. Mr. Maharis stated that 1/5 of the city is reviewed every year for Project Trim, and after the review, letters are sent out to the homeowners that are in violation, and that has resulted in a 96% compliance with the ordinance for tree trimming. There were questions on the expenses if the city took it over or if a private contractor were to do it, and those answers will be given at the next Public Services Committee meeting Tuesday, January 8th, where we will continue to review the program and also take a look at the letter that was that is sent out to citizens in violation to see if there's some improvements need to be made there.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Appreciate your service. Just a technical note. Councilors are not seeing our live video on our screens at this point, but the clerk, Denise Tucker, says that it is live on Sire at this point, so SiouxFalls.org is getting it. We're just working on getting it to be live on TV. They'll catch up, so just so you know that. Next, we'll move on to City Council open discussion. I'm going to begin first with, I'd like to take just a moment of privilege for the Council to offer its thanks and congratulations to Mike Sullivan from the Sioux Falls Sports Authority. He's retiring and leaving us. Mike, would you come up and say a few words and accept our congratulations and appreciation on for your service? Oh.
Buttons, right? Just heard that. I just wanted to do something that you don't hear enough of, at least I don't think you hear enough of, and so make sure the tapes are rolling here. I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, for everything you've done for the Sports Authority. I came here 5 years with the idea of putting together an organization that would really benefit Sioux Falls, and I think we've accomplished that. And I say we because I actually do mean everybody that has been involved from all forms of city government, all parts of the city, and the citizens of Sioux Falls. But you all know some of the decisions we've made over the past 5 years. You've had probably the biggest part in that and backed us all the way and done all the things necessary to take us where we are today. Don't lose the vision you've got going right now. Sioux Falls is right there to become one of the great leaders in this nation, in my estimation, especially for a city this size in the sports and entertainment world. With the facilities that are coming on board within the next couple of years, no city in this nation will have what we have here. And I will continue to say we no matter where I live, because I do feel I was a part of it, and I'm very proud of what we've done and what we've accomplished together. And I wanted to thank you, not only you, but the other council people that are no longer serving, that did serve at some point in my tenure here the last 5 years. I think most of you know I was born here some X number of years ago and lived right down the street, and I never really thought much about coming back to Sioux Falls until the opportunity presented itself. And boy, am I awful glad that I did and became a real part of what now is I consider my hometown. So again, I just wanted to thank you very much for everything you've done, and like I say, keep the vision, because the city's going in the right direction, and thanks to all the citizens who've played a big part in what we've done also. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say that. Thank you.
Thank you again very much, Mike. Mike sets high expectations for us. We'll continue with open discussion. Councilor Rolfing.
I also want to thank Mike. One question I have, though, is I just can't figure out why he's leaving this time of the year.
He knows something we don't know, Rex. Others for open discussion this afternoon. Councillor
Yes, I have
Staggers.
just a couple of issues. The first one is in regard to the international codes that we're going to be dealing with tonight. Did those go through Public Service Committee or not? Did they go through any committee?
I believe that, and we'll ask during the presentation this evening, but they go through a series of public committees, including IRAB, which I can never remember what it stands for, and a variety of other infrastructure review advisory board, right? Okay, sorry. A variety of other citizen committees. I don't know that they, help me counsel, that they came actually through, they do not come through our committees. They came through other committees.
So to me, that's an instant concern. They should be going through our committees, because I've received some information on one code, which, I don't know, is kind of disturbing that we didn't have it go through the committee so we could have a committee take a look closer at it. So I was just wondering if there's any consensus of deferring these until they go through a proper committee of the City Council.
Thoughts, comments from council? Councillor Karski?
Actually, that same question entered into my mind, and I didn't know if that was protocol for that for this type of thing to go through a land use or public services or any other committee. So do we have any?
I see a volunteer coming up to help us out, Mike Cooper from Planning and Building Services. Mike?
Yeah, Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. We do this every 3 years. This is a process that has been going on for a long time. And we have not taken this to a committee of the council because we go through a very extensive public review process with home builders, South Dakota Multi-Housing, Infrastructure Review Advisory Board. All of our Board of Appeals review these ahead of time, and they are very technical. And in fact, I even presented this prior to first reading to the council leadership, saying that it's not the intent to take these to a committee, and I was never told that we should stop the process. So here we are tonight for second reading, and we have not taken these to a committee in the past of the council.
And quite honestly, that from leadership standpoint, we agreed with Mike at that time. Councillor Anderson?
A question for Councilman Staggers. Is there a certain section in the code book that you're concerned about?
Well, of course, what we talked about on the first reading, the sprinkler system. And since that time, I've gotten some other information which, wow, wasn't fully brought out last Tuesday. So I think it's even more imperative. Are there more of these things in some of these international codes, which are not really international, it's the United States plus another country or two, that we should be taking a closer look at. Because there are objections from the community about some of these codes. So I guess, I think we ought to have it go to committee. I mean, these are really important issues that are going to increase the cost of housing in Sioux Falls.
Okay. Comments, Councillor Karski?
Are these questions that could be addressed during the discussion dialogue tonight?
Some of them could be, but once again, we have to have a more thorough discussion in these committees. Tonight, yes, we can ask some of them, but this is, I wish we would break this precedent of not having this go to committees. I mean, these are really, really important codes that affect a lot of people in Sioux Falls.
And that's why I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
And that's why we've spent over a year working with different forms of public input because of the technical nature of these. And the industry people that are the most affected by these are the ones that we've been meeting with and had the discussion about what should go into them or not. So we've made a very strong effort to provide as much public input, particularly by the people that would be most affected by these.
Okay, Councillor Staggers, go ahead and then
I was going to say, and many of these people are still objecting to these codes that you've talked to.
Okay, so if I might just walk us through this just a little bit. Let's go ahead and have those presentations this evening, and then if we get to a point where we feel like we want to defer and we want to assign to committees, then we can do it at that point. You know, we can't really take action during informational meeting. Comments, ideas about that? Councillor Anderson.
And that was what I was also going to suggest, was that we allow the presentation. Councilman Karski and I had meetings with Ron Bell and the fire department here just earlier today, and those questions were surrounding the sprinklers and everything. I think if we allow them to do their presentation, Councilman Staggers, and we're still concerned about that section of the ordinance, that I would definitely second any motion to withdraw that and take a further look at it. I think the rest of the ordinance, though, is something that sits quite well with the building community. I haven't had any other, complaints other than that sprinkler part of the ordinance.
I think it's that one issue that we're still
Yes.
debating.
Yeah.
Okay?
I guess
okay
my
with that?
concern is, in the future, I mean, I still can't believe we want to go ahead and not have these go through committee. But in the future, of course, that's another 3 years from now, and there's really no rush that we do this tonight or at all. We cannot have this as a continued precedent for the future. And I think still the best thing would be is to stop this precedent tonight and say these should go to committee. There is no rush. There is no hurry to do these right away.
Other comments? Okay, thank you, Councilor Staggers. We'll move forward. Did you have other issues?
Yeah, I have
Other
one
items?
more, and that's in regard to probably the number one issue for the citizens of Sioux Falls tonight is going to be the snow gates. And on the schedule, it's near the end of the meeting, and I was just wondering if we might want to move it to the front, because we are going to have a lot of people here tonight.
Chair doesn't have a feeling about it. What do you, comments from other council members?
So I'll go ahead if it's...
You make
no-
the motion when we approve just remember,
Yeah.
we make a motion to approve the agenda, and then you'd make a motion to amend.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that.
And let it happen. Okay, Councilor Jamieson?
Just on that last comment on the snow gates, the agendas are set up by order in which the items are received, and I believe it's real proper protocol to follow the process that the agenda is developed, and to move items up ahead and in favor of one group or another is just a bad practice to start.
Well, I wouldn't disagree, Councilor Jamieson, but we do it on a not infrequent basis. They are set to, and the clerk would have to help me with that, but sometimes they're grouped by what they are, notice of hearings and those types of things.
Right.
I guess I would just encourage Councilor Staggers to make the motion if he chooses, and the council will vote in the way that they choose, but taking that into account, that it is set based on how they come in. Other thoughts, comments on that?
Well,
Okay,
I
Councilor
just
Staggers, go ahead.
clarify a little bit. It's not exactly that way, because we do have a certain procedure that resolutions are near the end.
Right.
And this is what this is. And we've done this before in the past when we've had many people concerned about an issue, and respecting all the people that are coming, that the overwhelming majority are going to be talking about snow gates. It's, I think, the only proper thing to do.
You don't think they're going to be here for advice and consent on committees? Come on. I tease. Any other comments or questions about that item? City Attorney Fifley is just pointing out to me that the order of the agenda is set by ordinance, and but again, it puts resolutions toward the end, as Councilor Staggers noted. But again, we do on occasion make those changes on our own. So I would just say, vote as you see fit at this point. Thank you. Other open discussion items, Councilor Jamieson.
I had a question of the committee that met on the tree trimming. Councilor Anderson, we had talked once about, for instance, Marion Road, when it was widened, and then some of those homes were all of a sudden in violation of the height of their trees. Did you guys have any conversation about providing a tree trimming service to arterial roads that are redeveloped or rebuilt?
Yes, we did, and those questions have been sent to Forestry, to Dwayne Stahl, and we're going to be waiting for updates at the next Public Services meeting.
Very good, thank you.
Other items for open discussion, Councilor Anderson.
Over the last few weeks, we've had issues with Sire, and I guess all I'm hearing is that we're having problems with Sire. Could we have Media Services come and give us an update on this and what they're doing to resolve these issues?
I would think that we could. And it's my understanding it's not always dire. There's things going on with our cable room downstairs. But yeah, absolutely. We'll ask media services to come in.
Whatever the issues are, so that we can address them.
Absolutely. We'll schedule that for the next informational meeting. I'll ask staff to take care of that for us. Anything else for open discussion? Okay, moving forward on our agenda this evening, we'll start with presentations, the monthly Event Center project update. Mayor Mike Huther, welcome.
Ken, I'll let you get that up. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks so much for the opportunity to engage you once again. Going to take you on a little journey involving our event center tonight. And again, at the end, if you have any questions whatsoever, just don't hesitate to ask. Back when we started this in 2010, communication with the public and of course, the City Council was incredibly important, and that's still the case today. If you look at some of the communication milestones over the last 12 months, we've met with you good folks 11 times. We've held 2 subcontractor open houses. As you know, we've had multiple press conferences on all the things that are going on with the Event Center. We now update the website as often as we possibly can to keep that as up to date as possible so that people can know what's going on. And anybody at any time can go to our 24/7 webcam to see what is going on with the construction of our new Event Center. Keeping the West Sioux neighborhood engaged also was very, very important to us. And every time we do it, we have a packed house, and we should. That is one neighborhood that has so much history to it, and they really, really care about what's going on there. And we've held 2 neighborhood meetings, and we're certainly planning to do more in the future. As the council is aware, we now can take you on a bird's eye view of the construction. Not only have we done that with you good folks, but also with the media. And right now, one of the things that we're really excited about is this steel is going to be going up soon. And as that occurs, I think the people of Sioux Falls will get even more excited. Financially, this project is going extremely well. I know that during the debate, that was probably the hottest topic that we talked about, was the money. And I'm very excited to talk about the money. We completed financing package for the $115 million in public funding. As you know, we did 2 bond sales. And we're not borrowing this money for free. We're not. But the average interest rate is 3.13%. Boy, looking back when Cindy and I bought our first home and our second home, and we could only imagine a 3.1% interest rate, and the City of Sioux Falls is taking advantage of that now. When we started the presentation with you, we had an estimate on what we thought it would cost the taxpayers in the long run. And with that incredible interest rate, we're going to save over $22 million plus in taxpayer dollars from these very, very incredible rates. Also, we talked about some of the things that could happen if the voters approve this event center. We are achieving those critical goals that we laid out. Number 1, we don't need a tax increase to build our new event center. It's had no negative impact to our capital improvement plan or our capital improvement projects. In fact, we're doing more than we ever expected when we started this dialogue. And yes, I would encourage you to find another city that is as strong in financial position as the City of Sioux Falls is right now. Our town is rocking. Our sales tax numbers are very, very strong. And we have the capacity not only to build a new event center for our town, but also will meet the other goals of this city as well. Naming rights were something that certainly garnered a lot of attention. And I am very, very pleased to announce that we did establish a partnership with Sanford Health, Premier Bankcard, First Premier Bank, and yes, Mr. Denny Sanford. And with that, we now will have our Denny Sanford Premier Center. And We just inked the largest naming rights deal in the history of America for a city our size. $18.75 million the taxpayers of this town will receive over the next 25 years. An additional $2 million cash donation was offered in the spirit of making our event center even grander, and we're excited about that. And something that I think we failed to really capture was that we didn't pay a commission on this. Normally, when you ink a deal like this or you negotiate a deal like this, you hire a professional to make that happen. And in this case, it would have cost the taxpayers about $2 million. But in this case, we paid zero. The taxpayers won. The City of Sioux Falls won. We're also right now working with Legends Sales and Marketing, and they're doing a great job out there soliciting other partners as well. And what I'm pleased to announce is that demand is high, not only for partnerships, but things like the suites and the loge boxes, and we're excited to talk about that even more in 2013. Again, we're going to utilize these funds to help us cover the operational expenses of our new event center. We think we've got a great start on profitability, a great start. We had to design this thing, and we're very, very proud of what we're seeing. The building design is exciting. We now have a 4D model that we'll show all of you in the city someday and give you an even greater flavor for what's coming. Again, engaging the public has been critical, and we need them, and we have, whether it be the Facility Tenant Committee, the Design Elements Committee, or our Graphics Committee. We did not want to build this new event center in a vacuum. There are experts in our town that have wanted to be engaged in this once-in-a-lifetime event, building a new event center. And we're using their expertise to a very, very high level, and indeed, we are thankful for that. Our 51-year-old events, our arena, didn't really take into consider the fact that there are some folks that have some challenges. Well, with this new event center, we're not losing sight of that. The American with Disabilities Act is definitely a priority for us, and we're working with that now. Other construction milestones. We have been told by many that this is the biggest groundbreaking that anybody can remember. August 30th was an incredible day for this city. I want to thank all of you for being there and enjoying it with us, but it was, what a day for our city. Others, McCart Field. Mark Cotter will tell you it's probably one of the fastest parking lots we've ever built in our town. And not only are we celebrating, but I think maybe more importantly, the West Sioux neighborhood is celebrating the new parking lot. Safety and access has been a concern there for years, and it really turned out well. And again, I think to honor Mr. McCart, his legacy was remembered. When his family was here, when his granddaughter and his daughters were there to celebrate, I think they will agree we did it in a grand fashion. The super flush, as we talked about it, that line is installed, and I really can hardly wait for the day when we invite the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and we'll give them all a toilet or a urinal, and we'll flush it all at the same time, and we'll test that thing. It is just something really intriguing about how this thing is being built and some of the things you have to remember along the way. We had some fun with the super flush, and we'll have even more fun before we open it up. One of the things that we told you folks was that our goal was to build a new event center and create local jobs and local opportunities along the way. We followed through. We followed through in a big way. 80% of the work has already been bid. And right now, we're on track to have 95% of these jobs, 95% of these contracts performed by local women, local men, local businesses. Talk about economic development. Talk about commercial development. I can't think of a better way to do it. These are local jobs that we are celebrating. Operationally, we also had some big wins. We hired SMG to really lead us as we capture all the opportunities involving the new event center, the convention center, the arena, the Orpheum Theater, and more. As well as proud to, again, partner with Ovations in terms of our food and beverage service that we're going to enjoy. And yes, by the way, the contract that was inked actually cost less than the prior contracts that we had in this city. Again, one more example of how the taxpayers of this town are winning. There was a really big concern about if we build this thing, will we be able to handle the capacity in terms of the parking? And again, it's not done yet, but we have had some opportunities to prove whether we can handle parking with a large event. As you remember, the President's Bowl, Dakota Bowl, the big USD NDSU football game, festival of bands, and more. We pulled all those off, and I am very pleased to announce I did not receive one complaint, not one. I don't know if you folks have, but I personally did not. We really took this seriously. We know we're going to have to continue this after the event center's built, but it's really been a big win. Economic development and commercial development is, again, something that we're very enthused about in the months and the years to come. We've held dozens and dozens of meetings with the businesses within that neighborhood, with developers, property owners, and yes, West Sioux neighbors, to talk about the potential, to talk about the future, to talk about the vision of economic development. We have put together a comprehensive plan, and Darren Smith and Mike Cooper and their teams have talked to you about that. And there are development projects in the works that we feel very confident we'll be able to share with you in 2013. You know, Mike Sullivan, he's leaving us physically, but he's certainly not leaving us in spirit in any way, shape, or form. You heard him talk about this will be our event center, and this is still my town as he's talking. I mean, he laid it out, folks. I mean, just think of it. You got the Sanford Sports Complex, the new event center, the arena, the convention center. You've got the airport and all that potential there. As Mike Sullivan so plainly spoke and so eloquently spoke, it'll be something that no other community in America will have. And they'll be incredibly jealous along the way. Our new event center. You know, you look back, we've set some pretty lofty goals. And the thing isn't done. It's not. We still have a year and a half to go. But right now, we are on schedule. The fall of 14 looks very realistic. By the way, Sioux Falls, we are within budget and feeling very confident. We believe that $117 million is very reasonable. And here's kind of the exciting thing. We've not had to do a shortcut with anything. We haven't had to cut back in the spirit of trying to make this $115 million of public funds and $2 million of private funds. It's going to be a grand event center when the thing is built. We're doing it the right way, the prudent way, the responsible way. As we talked about, we're creating local jobs. Local builders, local suppliers will reap the rewards of this investment. And as we talked about with Darren Smith and his work and the Legends team, we feel confident today that we are setting ourselves up very nicely to operate in the black with these partnerships that we've already created, as well as these partnerships that we will create in 2013. And then, again, I don't know about you, but the level of excitement not only in the city of Sioux Falls, but across this area in South Dakota. They can hardly wait to have it up and running for that grand opening. The level of pride that all of you and that this city will have when we open that is certainly going to be real. It's been one productive year, Sioux Falls. It certainly has, but we're not done. Got a long way to go, and we'll keep you educated and informed along every step of the way. And I will also let the people of Sioux Falls know that this council is very engaged. If they have questions, if they have comments, they're not afraid to ask me or my team along the way, so be happy with them. I now want to bring Mark Cotter up here to kind of give you a real quick sneak peek into your new event center, as well as we have some really special guests here today. Again, we are not building this thing in a vacuum. We're not all event center experts, but we've hired one team of experts that we'd like to introduce to you as well today. Councilor Urbanbach, thanks for the opportunity. Again, if there are questions at the end, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But right now, Mark Cotter, if he'll come forward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. Like the mayor said, the design has progressed very well. We're probably at 95% design. If you've had a chance to be on the site or look at the webcam, construction's well underway. One of the key points was deep foundations are done, and so that just means that we're doing some shallow foundations, and ultimately, right after the first of the year, you'll start to see some vertical elements come out of the ground and really start to see this event center take shape. We want to show you some of those most recent renderings tonight that has caught up the design plans, but before we do that, we want to introduce you to some of the partners that have been on this project from the very beginning that are in the audience today. First, with the Legend Sales and Marketing team, Ben Wrigley and Ryan Query. We're going to ask them to stand up just to highlight, if you guys would stay standing. The lead architecture team out of Denver is St. Combs Deathless with Mike Harvey and Joe Dyer. Locally, they've teamed up with Coke Hazard and Jeff Hazard, and Keith Thompson have done an excellent job with the interior finishes of this building. The Mortensen team, Jason Miranowski and Kevin Gallagher are here. Our owners' representatives are Dick Strasberg and Naomi Burchett. One of the challenges that we had when we did this is we never have built a building this big and this scale, and so we reached out to an owner's rep that had done this to be in our court throughout this entire process. They've been a great addition. The City of Sioux Falls team that's been led by Mayor Mike Huther is Kendra Simmonsma, Darren Smith, Tracy Turbach, Mike Cooper, David Fifley, Karen Leonard, and not here, but they do a lot of work, so I'm going to recognize them, Shannon Verhey, Terry Van Dyke, and Robbie Venerick from Public Works that are in the trenches every day. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for attending. All right, let's get started. Again, we want to just quickly path you through a couple of the most recent renderings. This is essentially the front door. This is when you come in. That's the large ticket window, multiple windows. It's cased out with quartzite stone to really emulate one of the key stones that are in this area. One of the things that we just want you to have somewhat of a focus to when you look at these renderings is that when you walk through a number of arenas and large stadiums, a lot of times you see a lot of exposed trusses, exposed metals. You'll see a lot of what you'll see in this facility. There's a lot of soffits. There's a lot of nice ceiling textures. This lobby here will have a terrazzo floor that matches the terrazzo floor that comes into from the convention center, so it'll be a nice transition. So this is essentially the front door. As you progress a little bit into the large lobby, and this will be all 3 stories tall, this is essentially at event level. And so you could walk right into the event floor at this point through some of the portals. But the majority of the people that come to this facility will take the escalator or the stairs up to the suite level. This is a suite level, and one of the things to look at here, again, with the lighting design, the soffits, the ceiling textures, when we interviewed sink homes, we asked them what are some of the strategies that people that are building these event centers including in their buildings designs to make them more than just a standard bowl. And one of the things that they brought to us is to have these clubs, and right there, just for naming purposes, until Legend sells that club, is that on each side of the bowl is an open club to the event floor, and then on the west end there's another one. So one of the strategies that we've seen that we've included as one of the most recent design techniques is to really have the ability to be in a club but not miss the action. So you'll see a number of those strategies in these renderings tonight. This is on the main concourse. So as you walk around, you'll start to see a lot of repeating upside down U's. There's a structural element on the outside of the building, and that gets repeated several times throughout the building. This is a concession you'll be able to see in where we have open grills, the cook cooking that food, just to have more of an open environment. Again, as you progress around the main concourse, you'll see a lot of repeating elements. There'll be a concession, bathrooms, concessions, bathrooms, and you'll see a lot of those repeating upside down U's. Again, a lot of clouds for ceiling treatments to block all the utilities, all the cable trays that keep these facilities running. But again, we certainly didn't go the route of keeping all that exposed. There's a lot of nice ceiling treatments throughout the building. This is the inside of one of those clubs that ultimately, if you could look to the right, that you would see that is open to the action. Another shot of that same club. Another shot of this club. This is on the opposite side of the facility, and again, these names are just representative until there's a business name on them, we hope. This is a good view. Again, look at just the openness to the inside action, but also look at the finish levels that have been selected for the building. It's going to be a very nice quality facility that as people come to this building for a sporting event or a multi-purpose event or a convention, it's going to be a building that can be used for a number of those functions just because of the finish levels that have been selected. This is the club. It's a smaller opening to the bowl. This is on the west end of the building, essentially up against Western Avenue. And again, it completes those three openings to the bowl. Next floor up is the suite level. So as you see the numbers above the doors, those are numbers on those suites. Next. This is on the same concourse, only looking back. Again, not only look that we've got escalators to every floor, but also the railing and the glass that will allow for a good view as you're looking down over into the lower levels or the upper levels of this facility. Give you a look inside the suite. This is just one rendering inside the suite to have good facilities for the catering and also seats to watch the action. This is another aspect that's been a growing trend in many buildings, and these are essentially unwalled suites. The term is loge boxes. They usually have 4, 6, 8 seats, and just gives another opportunity to sell a different product to someone that wants to have some level of exclusivity in this facility. There's been very nice locker rooms laid out for all the sports teams that will use this facility, and just one rendering to show you that. A hockey layout with the center hung scoreboard, and then an end stage concert. As the mayor said, we came here today to really say thank you. There's been a number of actions that have been taken over the course of the year, a lot of steps moved forward. It's been very productive, and we're here to answer your questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from council. Councilor Karski.
Mr. Cotter, you mentioned the club concept as kind of a new concept, basically. Mm-hmm. Are these designed to be private clubs? Are they open to the public? What's the idea here?
Right now, actually, both. I think the intent is that for one side, And again, that market analysis is being done, so not to get out front of this, but one side right now is being thought of to be private and the other side to be open to public. And so I think as Legends completes that market analysis, they will bring you back an entire plan of how this building will be marketed, and some of those points will be key.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Jameson.
Speaking of the marketing plan, I see Darren, if I could ask Darren, last time, maybe not last time, but a few times ago, we talked about the survey that Legends was doing regarding the marketing plan and kind of trying to figure out who and how often people would use the event center. And there was a question in there that I had a concern about.
Yes.
Did you ever get to the bottom of that?
Yes, I
so, what
did.
is it?
Yes, I did go back and double check, and as I said that day, I was about 99% confident that maybe it was misinterpreted in terms of looking at that survey, because that was one of the things that I was determined to make sure that we were being accurate with. I did go back and double check, and in the beginning of the survey, one of the setup questions referenced asking those participating in the survey and completing the survey if they are currently Stampede season ticket holders or Storm season ticket holders. But at that point, going forward throughout the rest of the survey, it made reference only to hockey and indoor football. So I can understand how it could be interpreted otherwise, but I know, again, before it went out, that was actually one of the things that I wanted to make sure we were being consistent and accurate with. So I was 99% sure, but I didn't want to say 100% until I looked, but I did, and I think it is accurate.
To follow up?
Yeah.
Just to follow up, Darren, thank you on that. I see Legends representatives are here. Did they get a good response from the community and get plenty of input from us to?
Yes, we received a response that I would say is consistent with what they've seen in other markets, maybe a little bit better. So certainly they feel like they're not fully complete yet with the process, but they've captured enough data, and they know at the end of that analysis period that they will have captured enough data to feel good about the recommendations that they'll be making.
Other questions, Councilor Staggers?
Yes, for the mayor, please. I'm just trying to get numbers in my mind fixed. The total cost of the event center is going to be how much with the interest?
I don't have that number on the top of my head, but Tracy, would you? I mean, construction costs will be no more than $117 million, right. And with the interest over the next 25 years or 30 years, whatever, you'll follow up. Tracy will follow up with that.
And then a second question: are we going to be paying? How much are we going to be paying per year to pay off the loan?
Well, that varies, and Tracy's mentioned that a couple of times. You want to give it another shot, Tracy? Sure.
Tracy Turback with Finance Department. The payment structure was set up in a way that the payments in the initial years were lower, and as our sales tax revenues grew and some of our other obligations, debt service payments fall off as debt is retired, then those dollars could go toward the event center. So incrementally they step up. The initial payment this year was $4.2 million, and they peak out at about I think they hit a plateau at about $8.1 million.
And also, I just have one other question for the mayor. My understanding is that Mortensen, when he gives out contracts, they don't follow the idea of competitive bids. They can give it to anybody they want. Is that true or false?
Well, with our goal, I'm not going to speak for Mortensen, and it's probably better for Mark.
Yeah.
But what we went into was we were utilizing a strategy where we would try to get at least 80 to 85% of the work done by local men, local women, local businesses. And to that effort, we've been very, very successful. I've not been involved in the bidding process, but Mark, would you want to give that a shot?
Sure.
Thank you. Or even Jason.
Yeah,
Right. Jason Marinowski's here with Mortensen as well. You're right. They do not have to follow competitive bid laws like a public agency has to, but the city is involved with those bid openings. So when we go out for a package, like we'll call it, the next one's called Bid Package 5, and the majority of that work is finishes. There'll be a number of contracts in that. Could be anywhere from 11 to 15 contracts that are involved with Bid Package 5. There'll be a formal solicitation to contractors in the region for that work. They'll all submit them on a certain day at a certain time. We get in a room with Mortensen, open those bids, and then start to go through the evaluation process. And there's a number of factors that we look at, from completeness of scope, the ability to have a performance and payment bond, their financial strength, their local presence, because that's been one of the project goals, and ultimately making sure we select people that have the experience to do the work and can deliver the work on time. And so it's closer to what I would consider a best value approach. I would also tell you, from being in the room, the majority of those contracts have also been the most competitive, but not in every case from that standpoint, because they could be different in scope. They could have a difference in experience level. They could ultimately have an inferior product. Like the mayor had mentioned, we haven't taken an inferior product on this building. One example is our operators, SMG, manages facilities all over the country. One of the key things to them, they said, is long-term having the ice plant to be a high-quality ice plant that makes the ice for ice shows and hockey. This product is better over this product. And so we went through an evaluation. Then we went through a life cycle analysis on how many times would you have to rebuild these compressors to be able to justify buying this type of machine. And so in that case, we did pay more for a better ice plant, because we know long-term it's going to be better for the operation of this facility. But ultimately, as the mayor said, the project is on budget. We're managing. We won't surpass $117 million. And again, as you look at the renderings, but also the back room, as I would say, the mechanical aspects of this building are also going to be very tight.
Now, you mentioned correctly that Mortensen is not a government agency, so it doesn't fall under state law, because under state law, generally speaking, you have to go with the lowest bid. But from what you've said, the City of Sioux Falls seems to be intimately involved in this process of deciding who's going to get the bids.
Mm-hmm.
So are we violating the spirit of state law?
We are not. In fact, we've used our own legal counsel with David Feifley and Karen Leonard, but we also went outside. Jim Wiederich's been in front of you, and he's vetted this issue to the extent. The true method is we have a contract. This construction delivery method of construction management at risk has the ability for Mortensen to do exactly what they're doing legally and ultimately deliver the project for the City of Sioux Falls.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Anderson.
Mark, still, you can stay up there, I guess, a little bit longer. Number one, how many contractors, subcontractors do we have involved in the building of the event center?
I'll probably ask Jason to speak to that. How many subcontractors have been selected to this point? Jason Marinowski from Mortensen.
Subcontractors that we currently have on board, I mean, if you look at the first bid package, which was the best value selection process, we really had 4 primary subcontractors there. And the bid package 2, which is dealing with the site work, some of your concrete foundations, deep foundations, and things of that sort, there were 6 there, so that brings us up to about 10. And then on bid package 3, which is dealing with some siding, your structural steel entities, your horizontal concrete of the structure. There's another 6 contractors there, so that puts us up to about 16. Bid package 4 is what we're currently vetting out, that we received proposals from, and we've gone to recommendations with the city. I think we've had 4 recommendations for the city, and there's another 4 that we have left to go, so another 8 on top of the 16. Oh. Yeah, if you want to include site services, which I would view a little bit differently, but site services, we have about another 8 contractors on the site services. Site services would be your temporary sanitation units, your dumpsters, your temporary fence for the construction service itself during the construction.
Is there a list of these vendors and their responsibilities that would be available to review, or?
Most definitely, yep.
If we could have maybe that sent in an email or something like that? Thank you.
Do that. I'll funnel out through Mark. Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Great. Thank you all very much. It's been an exciting year. Mr. Mayor, do you have a closing comment or just waving at me?
No, I do think I do want to address something that Councilor Staggers had mentioned. Our goal is not to build this thing as cheap as we possibly can. We had goals that this council outlined and that the people of Sioux Falls outlined. They wanted a quality facility. They wanted it done within the stipulations of the amount that they voted for, the 115. It's now going to be 117 because of the generous gift that we received from the folks at Sanford Health and Premier and First Premier Bank. But also something that was very, very important to us was creating economic development and jobs here in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota. I'll save my own personal commentary about accepting the low bid and whether that's a good thing for the state or not. I'll save that for another day. My goal today is let's do this thing right. Let's offer the opportunities to people in Sioux Falls and South Dakota versus, I'm sorry, folks, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, Nebraska, and others. In my mind, we should be hiring South Dakota people to do this work as much as we possibly can. And you'll find that payback, Councilor Staggers, in economic development terms and in commercial economics, that payback you receive it 10 times over. So I just thought I should address that, and I'm just real excited at where we've come. So thank you again, Councilor Urbanbach, for that opportunity. And Council, thank you. We've got a lot to celebrate, but we're not done because the project's not done. Make it a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the group for the
Madam
presentation.
Chair, if I could
yes,
just
Mr.
make
Staggers,
one
go
comment.
ahead.
State law, generally speaking, requires the low bid, and there's, very good reasons why that's in state law. And
if I could interrupt you, Councilor Staggers, I had those questions when we were talking about the contract manager at risk process, which is allowed by state law now. Mr. Cotter, would you come and clarify that for us one more time? Again, the idea of the contract manager at risk.
I think this delivery method is a method that's allowed by state law. There's a number of delivery methods, whether it's just go to the open market and solicit bids, and if you get a responsible bidder, and in some cases that means that they've handed the bid in on time and that they actually have a bond. That's it. Outside of that, unless you have a file on those contractors, it's very difficult sometimes to not move forward and select that. This method's different. It still is, and it's also the preferred method of now the universities in this state, the University Center, SDSU, USD, because they're finding that, number one, the reason we went with construction manager at risk is that we wanted to hire the architect, and then shortly after we wanted to hire the constructor so that they can work in a room and value engineer, value architect, if you will, different systems and have an open exchange of ideas. So we didn't get all the plans done and then go to the market and then ultimately have surprises based on either finish levels or quality or anything of that nature. And so I can provide more information, and I can work with our legal team if there's additional questions on construction manager at risk. But I can just tell you that there was extensive work on the front side researching the delivery method, reinforced by first seeing that the universities of this state have really moved to this delivery method. And you truly do get to form the right team when you build a very complex building like this. So.
Good, thank you. I'm going to close this conversation now and move us forward to the November monthly financial report. Tracy Turbeck, Director of Finance.
Good afternoon again. This is the final monthly update of 2012. I know you're all sad to hear that, but don't worry, I will be back. Not next month. We'll give you next month off, but I'll be back in February with a comprehensive report on the 2012 year-end results. So we'll look forward to that. Until then, I'll go through the monthly update for November, or as of the end of November. As I always do, we'll go through some of the economic indicators that we track. Unemployment, the latest data keeps our unemployment rate at, or kept steady at 3.7% in our Sioux Falls MSA. That's, by comparison, the state rate was 4% and the national unemployment at 7.5%. I might point out as well, a year ago, our local unemployment rate here in Sioux Falls was 3.8%. So we continue to look very, very good relative to ourselves a year ago and relative to the state, and certainly most favorably compared to the national unemployment rate. So that's certainly a very positive indicator for our local economy. Secondly, the one thing we've been presenting you with each month this year is an update on the valuation of building permits issued by our building services department, and this continues to run very, very strong. I didn't really expect earlier in the year when we were at 40 to 50% growth rates over last year. I really didn't expect that level to hold up as well as it has. But through November, we're up $142 million compared to last year, which is an increase of about 52%. So that's just really, really extraordinary, I think, in terms of the construction sector of our local economy. Our general sales tax revenues continue to grow. This chart is a rolling 12-month growth rate. So every month we look at the past year and measure how much our sales tax revenues have grown during that 12 months relative to the 12 months before, and that's what this line tracks. And you can see about, I believe it was about February of 2011 when that line crossed the 4% growth rate. And since then, for almost 2 years now, it's been between 4 and 6%. You can see it's been bouncing above and slightly below that 5% growth rate. A year ago it was at 5%. Most recently it's growing at 5.5%. And so if these monthly updates tend to sound a little bit like a broken record, this is a lot of the reason that we haven't seen a lot of change. It's certainly a very good record. It's a nice tune it's playing. A 5% growth rate is certainly very good for our local budget, our sales tax dollars, but it certainly is reflective of a growing local economy. So it's a very positive aspect of this, but it may get a little bit redundant from your standpoint, hearing this very similar report every month. Looking at what's happening with some of the more discretionary dollars that are rolling around in our local economy, this graphic, as you've seen before, is our entertainment tax dollars. That is measured with our entertainment tax. It applies, of course, often referred to as our bed, board, and booze tax, motel rooms, restaurant meals, alcoholic beverages, and ticketed events. And you can see that we've seen even stronger growth in this area as well. So that, to me, is an indicator that people are feeling a little bit better, or continue to feel even better about their own situation and having more discretionary dollars to spend in our local economy. We can see a year ago we were growing our entertainment taxes at 4.1%, and most recently we're at a 6.9% growth rate. So that's, again, another very positive indicator for our local economy, and in particular our visitor industries. Looking at the general fund revenues and expenses year to date, of course we're 11 out of 12 months have now lapsed, And we can see the revenues are continuing to run well ahead of a year ago at about a 7.8% growth compared to the first 11 months of last year. Expenses are growing at about 7.2%, so that's certainly a positive thing. Again, when our revenues are growing faster than our expenses, that's something I certainly like to see. The one thing I would point out on these two graphics, when you look at them side by side, I think last month someone asked it, it looked as though a month ago that expenses for the year had exceeded revenues, and that was true through October, but because that second half property tax payment comes in November, that has now since flip-flopped. So you can, if you compare the red bar for November on the revenue side, it is higher than the red bar for expenses on the right side. So our revenues year to date have exceeded our expenses for the general fund. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and open up for whatever questions you folks have.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Questions from council?
Early Christmas present for me, I guess. Huh? Let me off the hook.
Thanks so much for your report.
Thank you.
And you know, that kind of monotony is an okay monotony. Thank you.
That's what I think, too.
We appreciate it.
I look forward to the year end.
That's right. Yeah, looking forward to year end. That's exactly right. All right, then. We'll finish our afternoon with City Council budget update by Dave Bixler, budget analyst. Welcome, Dave.
David Bixler, council staff. Overall, for November, we had $111,000 in spending. That put us at 75% to budget for the year. I anticipate that we will be actually coming in about 80% to our budget for the year at probably be favorable about $235,000. On the labor and benefits side of things, 86% of our expenses for the month were for labor and benefits. So the other 14% really went to the city clerk office for the SIRE account, which was paid for Q4, and also for the legal publications with the Argus Leader. And then with the city council, there was mileage and cell phone costs, and also some charges for the NLC conference. And that's the end of my presentation.
Great, thank you, Dave. Questions for Dave about our own budget? Councilor Anderson.
So, David, you're predicting how much money will be left over at the end of the year for the council?
$230,000 about for the all three of the divisions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then the question is, what happens to that money? Is that what you're going to ask, Councilor Staggers?
That's exactly right.
Where does that money go then? We're all going to Cancun, or no, we're not.
General fund?
General goes back to the general fund. All right, thank you.
Well, I guess I
Go ahead.
wonder if we ought to start thinking about that because just putting in the general fund, it can be spent just on anything. I think we should have more say in what, the money that we save, we should be involved in.
Well,
so
I
just
think
throwing it into the fund, the big pot.
If I can respond, I think the issue is the budgeting in the upfront. And I think we're going to be better off having less dollars favorable at the end of 2013 versus what we came out in 2012. We're going to be a lot tighter on our budgets, and so we won't have that kind of a windfall at the end of the year.
In other words, maybe we could just use the $213,000 and apply it to the 2013 budget and then request less money from the general fund.
I suppose.
It all kind of does that anyway, right?
Right. It's going back into the pot.
But at least we're deciding what we're going to be doing with it.
Yep. Other comments, questions? Councilor Anderson?
Just a question that came up as Councilman Staggers was making his statement there. Could, if the council tonight decides to have the Snowgate election in 2013, could monies from the budget this year be used towards that, because we're already talking about how we can pay for that election. Here's extra funds right here that we could.
Councilor Aguilar.
I guess that, you know, I look at this is this 2013 budget will be the first budget that Dave has produced for us. Previous budgets, what we've seen when we went back, had a lot of excess in them, and so our goal has been to really budget to what the council needs. So I don't look at this necessarily as money that's ours to spend. I look at it as that we're getting control of our own budget and not over budgeting, I guess is how I would put it.
Okay. Councilor Intiman.
I might ask Tracy if you could address this with the money that's left over in the city council budget. It does go back into the general fund. Can you enlighten us? Is that required by charter, our ordinances, or could you just lend us a little help here, please?
Yeah, David's absolutely right. The council budget is part of the general fund budget, just like many of our other city departments. So whatever dollars don't get spent out of their budget stay in our unreserved fund balance and in effect do help fund the next year's budget. I think what Councilor Aguilar said a minute ago I think is very true, that, and what David said a minute ago, that in the past there have been, and 2012 is maybe the end of the past, and 13 is the first year of kind of a new approach to budgeting for the council, that your budget is going to be have less unspent money at the end of the year, at the end of 13. So, but yeah, the money all is in the general. It never leaves the general fund until you spend it. So I mean, it's there when we budget. That's where all your dollars come from, and whatever you don't spend stays in the general fund. I don't know. Is that's got to shed any light on it all?
Enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from council? Comments? Thank you for your report, Dave. We appreciate all your work. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing nothing, I am going to adjourn this meeting. We will be back at 5:30 to meet with the Lincoln County Commission. This meeting's adjourned.